Is it Jacob or Jakob?
Actually, Jacob in English and Jakob in Danish.
Okay, but which one do you prefer?
Jacob is fine.
Well, everybody say hi, Pimp. It's really good to see you, man. Is that a liquid jersey in the back?
That is my old liquid jersey. Yeah, I used to
Yeah,
play in. Yeah.
yeah. Can you see this?
Yeah, I see. Hey.
Yeah, yeah. I got a lot
Cool.
of fans over here. Because a lot of younger fans, like they don't really, they're just tuning in. Maybe they're new to Counter Strike, and then they will see you, and they're like, "Hey, who's this good-looking guy? This tall drink of water." But you didn't always look like that.
No, I used to be a big guy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's kind of what sometimes happens when you
Uh-huh.
you play a lot of Counter Strike, you play a lot of computer, right? You just sit here with a bottle of Coca-Cola and a bag of chips,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, when I was younger, I was very very overweight to say the least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do. I have a picture over here. After I got confirmation that we're gonna do this interview, I was telling my
Mhm.
chat about it, right? And then I showed them this picture. They're like, "Wait, that's not the same person. This is this
that is
was
the same
you
guy.
at some point."
This was me. Yeah, yeah. That is what is that like 6 years ago, maybe 6 or 7 years ago. I
But
think I
that
was
wasn't
playing in.
even yeah, that wasn't even that long ago though, 6 or 7 years, and it's just a
Mhm.
a complete body transformation. Do you think the reason was like maybe like more internal, or was just something happened externally? Like what was the motivation behind it?
Yeah, I think it was mostly internal. It was
Uh huh.
in Denmark. I was going to high school, and
Right.
all the social things in high school. Going to parties and taking part in all sorts of
Mm-hmm.
sports activities, etc. Being as big as I were, I couldn't do that. So I felt like I was missing something in my life. My Counter Strike career was going very well. I was doing good in school, but I didn't have that. I didn't have the ability. Basically, I was too big to do sports. Bike,
Mm-hmm.
run, play football. Something I always loved to do, and always loved to follow. I watch an awful lot of football. I'm very interested in cycling and bike races, etc. But I could never do it myself. So I think I just got to a point where I was mad that I could watch everyone else do something that I was pretty sure I was gonna love if I wasn't as big as I was. So it was like an internal motivation in that regard.
So you were already doing the transformation when you were still playing professionally.
Yes. Here's a couple of good reasons as to why you should use Skinbaron to buy and sell your skins. On average, they are 30% cheaper than the Steam market, so there's an awful lot of money to be saved. It's a safe environment. They have more than 1 million skins up for grabs, all different types. And even more important as well, you can sell your skins, get money to your bank account, or you can buy them using credit card, mobile pay, etc. Germany-based company, they pay their taxes, they're very legit, safe environment, so get going.
I assume that you're still very active,
Very
physically.
active, yeah. Very
Yeah.
active, yeah. I play football in a Danish league with my team. We practice 2 times a week, and then we have a game a week as well. Going to a game here in an hour from now, so that should be fun. And then I also bike a lot. You see
Uh
the
huh.
the bike behind me over
Yes,
here.
yes, yes. So what do you play? What is your position?
I play as a winger or
A
as a
winger.
striker.
Right, right, right.
Yeah, I'm
Oh,
kind of fast,
nice.
So
Oh,
yeah,
nice. Do you have any like highlights of you playing
nothing. I
somewhere?
got nothing.
I'm sure there'll be a lot of people who want to see that footage.
Hmm. True. I was
But
considering
yeah,
if it would be fun to live stream the football game. I just need to find someone who can record it. Yeah.
it would be, yeah. So, what is your current analyst slash streamer life like? Like your day to day?
I can give you the last 2 weeks as an example. I've
Mm-hmm.
just been doing Blast Premiere as an
Yeah.
analyst. So basically, starting from last week, I was streaming Monday for 4 to 6 hours every day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then I flew to Copenhagen, where the TV studios are at for Blast, and then I was working for Blast Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So it was basically an entire week of work every day. Whereas when I stream, I go live at around 11 o'clock in the morning, and I finish at around 3 or 4 o'clock. So I have the nights, to play football, to cook dinner with my girlfriend, and spend some time with friends. Like a normal regular life. When I'm doing events as an analyst, it's some longer days. At Blast in particular, it's some very long days. We have to cover 3 best of 3 games a day. So we meet in the studio at around 10 o'clock in the morning, and depending on how long the games are, we're done by 11 or 12. So we can be in the studio for like 12 to 14 hours a day. So last week, I had 5 days or 4 days in a row streaming for 4 hours, 5 hours, and then I had
Uh-huh.
3 days in a row, being in a TV studio for a total of 36 hours. So you really gotta love Counter-Strike to be able to do it, yeah. Because
For
like
sure.
what I just described right here, right?
Yeah.
When I was doing it the most 2 or 3 years ago before I started full-time streaming, I was having like 220 travel days / work days a year with that kind of schedule. So it was just a lot of Counter-Strike to soak in.
Right now, you are like the go-to analyst. Like you're such an iconic analyst at the table. But what are some things that you did when you were making the transition? What was that transition period like for you? Because I know that a lot of pro players, they want to, dabble in the analyst scene, after they retire, but not everybody succeeds. So what was the story behind that?
Yeah, well, I got asked by DreamHack, a tournament organizer back in the days. One of the guys asked me if I wanted to come and try it out. I've always been doing a lot of interviews when I was playing as an active player. So they saw that I was good in front of a camera and that I could speak, somewhat fluent English. So they asked if I wanted to try it out, and I did. And I think they hit the timing right. I didn't retire as a professional player back then. I was just taking a break basically. Went from Team Liquid. Took a break, moved back to Denmark from Los Angeles, and they asked me basically 2 weeks after I moved home, and I was like, yeah, sure, I gotta earn some money, I gotta pay my rent, so why not try this out? And then I liked it. It was long days, but it was fun. I liked it, and I got asked to do another event, and all of a sudden, I'd been asked to do like 6 or 7 events, and then I had to make a decision: do I want to continue pursue this career? Do I want to go back to playing? And the only teams that were interesting to me to play for back in the days, at that time, was Astralis and Heroic, and they just made roster changes at the time being. So I was like, there's no chance of me getting a spot right here now. I may as well just go for the analyst role. And then I just stuck with it and built up a career in doing analysis. I think one of the biggest things players in general fail to realize is that when you're playing on a pro team, right, you go in and you play one of those best of 3 games, right? So your days may be 3, 4, 5 hours of work, and then you do a bit of prep as well. But in general, you have a lot of time off. Whereas if you are the analyst, you're covering all 3 games, as you said, for 12 to 14 hours. So the workload is significantly harder, I'd say, for an analyst to be at an event than it is for a player. And I think a lot of players are like, it's already hard enough to be a player, so why would I go into a job that's even harder in a sense?
A lot of people, I guess, they just gave up, or maybe they tried it. They're like, yeah, it's not for me, or I can't imagine doing this for half a decade, or, But, you stuck through it. Well, that is interesting. And what was your role when you were playing professionally?
I used to play as the Star Rifler, rifling, secondary AWP role as well. I was always very, very good when I was young. I was always the best guy on my team. And
so you weren't necessarily the entry player, but you were the guy.
No, not necessarily the entry player, more like a Blame F type of player,
like
in Astralis,
Yeah, like a twist on face maybe right now.
Yeah, you could say so. Yeah. Having a little bit of a laid back role, but always coming in. I was very good in clutches, in 3v3s and 2v2s. So I was always staying alive till the later parts in the rounds. But yeah, I was playing the secondary AWP role as well. So I was AWPing a lot on the CT sides. And I always, I've always been like the best or second best player in my teams for the vast majority of my career.
And you mentioned you being able to speak English fluently. So I have to ask you this. A lot of my followers, they're very interested in ways to improve their English, right? And so I have to ask you this, because you're this go-to analyst for the Counter-Strike scene, and you're from Denmark, right? English is not even supposed to be your native language, right? And I understand that Europeans typically pick up English at a very young age, but I've met a lot of Europeans in my life, a lot of Scandinavians as well. Nobody speaks English on your level. So what are some things that you did throughout your life to reach this level of mastery in English?
Yeah. Well, I gotta be honest with you guys. I was not good at English in school. When I started in Denmark, we started in 4th grade already in ground school with English, and I was never I've never been good at learning new languages. English was no different. Also had Spanish in school, and I think I actually tried a little bit of what's called Mandarin. I think we call it
Mandarin Chinese.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. When we tried to learn that, and I've never had like the ear for learning a language, but given that I played, Counter-Strike, given that I played in an international scene where whenever I spoke to different interviews or whenever I spoke to different medias, it was always in English. I think I just picked it up by doing it. Some of my first interviews you can find on YouTube are horrible, like absolutely horrible English.
On Inferno, we come forward. On Inferno, we got forward behind. We got behind pretty fast, yeah.
but I got better because I kept doing it and kept doing it and kept doing it. And I think the most important, note I can give to any of your viewers or anyone out there who are interested in becoming, I guess, more comfortable speaking English, because I'm by far not the best speaking guy out there, and I still have a bit of an accent, and I still, have certain problems, with the vocabulary, etc. But just do it, just be confident in the abilities you have, and you will always get better every single time you speak. So when we close this call, I may have gotten a small tiny percent better than I were last time, and then you keep on building and keep on building. I see a lot of people be like, they listen to themselves, they speak English, it doesn't sound that good, and then they stop doing it, and then you'll never get better, right? So it's about just owning that you suck, and then you'll gradually get better and better and better every single time you do it.
A big reason of your success is your personality, I guess. Like, your English wasn't even that good, but you were outgoing enough to be taking those interviews, right? And then you just you just gradually got better and better and better. That is just so interesting, because you weren't born with it. Because I thought that you were going to tell me that you had this British dual citizenship or whatever. You grew up in the UK or something, but it's none of that. Wish. It's your personality.
Yeah, I guess I'm known to be quite a harsh analyst, in the sense that I always speak my mind. I'm not afraid of stepping anyone over the toes. I'm not afraid of saying what I see and what I mean. I think a lot of us, analysts, we're former players, we know the players, we're around the players, so sometimes we can be maybe a little bit afraid of hurting their feelings, or we can, pack it in a way where we don't sound as harsh as we could. I always, took a decision early on, saying that if I got to do this job, I got to do it, properly. So I may as well just say it as I see it, and if I think a player is underperforming heavily, or if I think the right move for a team would be to remove a player, even though I like that player, or even though I know that player personal wise, then I will still say it, because it's my job, and that's my integrity in a way. So I think that's what a lot of people like, and I think it's on the other hand, a lot of people dislike that as well. I think a lot of people get mad at me or offended at me if I say something bad about their favorite player, or how dare I say something critical about Astralis when I'm Danish, etc., etc. There was this ongoing joke in Denmark that obviously Astralis have done well in Counter-Strike for quite some time, and all the Danish fans, they think that I hate Astralis, and all the international fans, they think I love Astralis, just per default, because I'm always very critical of Astralis. I think they should do better. I think they could do better. But all the international fans will always, tend to think that I'm Danish, so of course I'm biased to Astralis. And there's just, at the end of the day, I realized there's no winning. The only one I can stay true to is myself. So I just speak my mind and speak whatever I see, and then people can interpret the way they want.
Well, speaking of Astralis, they're obviously very popular here in China. And can you just sort of comment on their current state?
It's been rough. They actually jumped to number 3 in the world right now. Just as a side note to that, a lot of the teams during the player break, we just had a summer break where all the teams went on a break, took a vacation, etc. A lot of the teams made roster changes, and then you lose a lot of your points in the rankings. Astralis didn't make any changes, so they kept their points, and that's why they're now, sort of like inflated to a position where they're not really at. Astralis has had a rough 22, and I think the roster they have right now is going to have a rough end of 22 as well if they don't switch out. There's a couple of the players who don't have the level, I'd say, anymore to be a team that competes to win tournaments, and that's where the discussion gets interesting, right? Because we used to see Astralis win majors. We used to see Astralis win pretty much everything they attend to, right? But that's not the reality anymore. So either we as fans and as Astralis viewers have to manage our expectations a little bit and say, okay, it's okay for Astralis that you're just a top 5 team, or you're just a top 6 team. But then again, the Astralis players themselves, the organization, they always go out and into say, we want to be the best again. We want to win trophies again. We want to win a major again. And then when you look at the lineup, it doesn't add up right now. There's simply a difference in what the expectations they're setting for themselves and what they realistically can achieve, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's looking at Farleague, and everybody just assumed that after the player break, he would be moved. But that didn't happen, right? But then again, when you look at all the other roster moves that are being made, you look at Dexter just being able to elevate OG to to this crazy level, a good aggressive opera, right? So what are your thoughts on that? Like, because you mentioned there are some roster spots right now that are a little bit shaky. So I think Farleague is definitely one. Now, what about Xyp9x?
Xyp9x is an interesting case. Had you asked me 3 months ago, I'd say, we need to get rid of Xyp9x. He's done a tremendous job for Astralis. He's had a fantastic career as well. I've been his teammate for 2 or 3 years as well, and he's the best teammate you could have asked for. Like, never causing any trouble. very good at communicating, reliable guy, but the individual level has just been dropping off to a level where it's not good enough anymore. That being said, though, the last couple of months, I feel Sibniks have been playing better. He started to perform okay. He's not the old Sibniks, far from, so he's still a question mark to me. He's still like, if you can find a player in his role that has potential to do more than Sibniks, I would still consider it if I were Astralis. But it's not a must anymore for me. I think he can stay. The big problem for me, as you said, is Farley with the AWP. It's the most important role in the game, the most expensive gun in the game. You said it yourself, a guy like Dexter comes to OG, and now all of a sudden OG looks like a team that can compete against some of the best teams in the world. Having a proper AWP player can elevate your team so much. And on the other hand, having an AWP player who's your weak link, who's by far your worst performing player, that's also going to hurt your team a lot. So with all due respect to Farley, I think he's tried his best. He's definitely seemed like a guy with a great attitude. He simply doesn't have the level right now to be at a team like Astralis that have ambitions of winning trophies. So if I were Astralis, I would do everything I can in my power to find someone else instead of Farley that can make it better. Farley is very, I'd say he's very passive with the op. He's not a guy that dictates the game. He can find opening kills from time to time, and I think he's gotten better at it, but it's not a player like Device or Dexter who, on a good day, they sort of like dictate the game on the server, right? They force their opponents to be like, okay, Device, he's playing A on overpass, we got to move more towards B, right? There's never any team out there that right now in the preparation be like, okay, Farley's playing A, let's try B. It's more so, okay, Farley's on A, let's try to punish him, right? Let's try to find him. So you don't really put any fear into your opponents, and they kind of take advantage of the fact that you have an AWP player that's not performing.
Well, you mentioned Device. Obviously, that whole thing, I would be streaming the match, co-streaming the matches and whatnot, and it wouldn't even be like, it doesn't even need to be an NIP match for someone to come in and ask me, when's Device coming back? Is he coming back on NIP? Is he going back to Astralis? What's going on here? And you're an absolute insider of the scene, so I want to ask you, is there any information that you can give out regarding Device at this point?
I think what we know from public sources is that he is for sale, right? NIP has put a price tag on him. $600,000-ish is what they roughly want. They're not going to get that much money for him. It's a player that hasn't played in almost a year, so I think they'll be willing to let him go for less, but it's always better to start high. I think it also means the Device is ready to come back and play Counter-Strike again. But it's not at any cost. I don't think Device is going to join a team just to join a team. I think Device will wait for a team that he feels is the right opportunity. And this is where it gets tricky, because if he waits much longer, the window of opportunity could close. He hasn't played for a year, and if he waits another year, then at some point people will be like, no, we're not going to take the risk on Device. There's younger players, there's better players, way cheaper options as well. He's a very expensive guy to have. He's going to require a lot of salary. Obviously a big brand as well, so that can maybe add up for it. But I think right now it's exciting to follow, and I'll say it like this: if Device hasn't joined the team within the next 3 or 4 months, I'll start to doubt whether or not he's ever coming back. I don't hope it's the case, and I have a good gut feeling that Device will be back playing Counter-Strike at some point, but it has to happen within the next 3 to 4 months at the very least.
Yeah, we don't want to see another Kenny S situation. I think that would just be sad.
No.
Yeah. In the event that he does come back, what do you think is the level of hunger going to be for him? Like, is he eager to come back and prove everybody wrong, or is he just going to maybe just coast a little bit? Like, based on what you know about Device.
I think he's going to come back and do well. I think he's very competitive driven. He's not okay with not being good. He's not okay with being average. I think that's also one of the points and one of the things and one of the reasons why he's going to be very selective with what team he's going to choose. I don't think he's okay coming back to a team that's going to fight to be top 9 or top 8 or top 10. Like, he wants to come back and win stuff. So I think in that regard, the hunger is going to be there if he decides to come back. One thing that goes very underrated about Device as well, not a lot of people know, I guess, or think about it, is it's never been him, grinding out 200 hours of Counter-Strike every week to be as good as he is. He's always had this natural skill for Counter-Strike. I remember back in the days when I was playing Counter-Strike Source against him, we were both like 14 years. We grew up, basically in the same game at the same time. And he was always just so naturally skilled. Like, sometimes he wouldn't have played for a week. He'd come into the server and he'd still be the best player. So I think for Device to make a comeback like this, it's going to be easier for him than it would be for a guy like me. I was always a grinder when I was playing pro Counter-Strike. When I was at my absolute best and my absolute peak, I was maybe a top 10, top 15 rifler in the world when I was really hitting my strides. And that came off the back of playing 100 hours of Counter-Strike every single week. Device could probably get away with playing 20 hours of Counter-Strike and be as good. So I think in terms of him coming back and making a comeback, I think people will underestimate how good he can actually be when he comes back.
Well, let's talk about Navi. Let's talk about FaZe. Some Young's fit in Navi. What are your thoughts? Do you think he has the potential to be a permanent member of Navi?
He has the potential, but I don't think he's living up to the expectations just yet. I think we need to see a little more from Some Young. He's been okay, as said. The team is performing with Some Young on the lineup right now, but Some Young is not really performing as well as he should and could. So I think it's up for debate. I think it depends on how well they do at the major. Let's say that Navi finish 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th at the major. I think Some Young will eventually go. He will be the scapegoat of that team, but it's up for debate. The team has done okay with him, but I think individually speaking, he needs to add a little more. Blade even said it during Blast here a week ago that he's not been satisfied basically with Some Young, but he still thinks that there's more to give if they give him more time. So it's a work in progress.
But based on what I've seen, he's a very solid player. He's very smart, but he's not necessarily a star player. So do you think Navi absolutely needs another star player?
No, they don't. They don't. You're right. Like they need a role player. They need a guy who can take on his role and just do the job to a decent level. The problem is when Some Young is doing the job, he's doing it a little bit below decent level. And sometimes in modern days Counter-Strike, you look at a team like FaZe right now who's been killing it, right? You have Rain, you have Twist, you have Brokey, you have so much individual skill on the server. You have Robs as well, don't forget Robs, right? You have 4 players who at any given point in the game could be the best player on the server. Whereas if you're in Navi, you have Perfecto right now, very good. You have Bit, you have Simple, you have Electronic. You sort of have the same in a way, but if you both have Some Young and Perfecto, you may lack that, 4th star player within your lineup. So it's up for debate. I think they could be the world's best with Some Young, but he needs to step it up just a little more.
Speaking of FaZe, and this is a whole discussion that I want to have with you. What are your thoughts on the current trend of all these teams going international? And can you just sort of weigh in on the pros and cons of international teams against these same language teams?
I think had you asked me 3 years ago, I'd be like, nah, international teams are not gonna win much, right? Because communication in Counter-Strike is so vital. It's so important that you have fast, crisp, clear communication. There's so many scenarios where a teammate will give info just half a second too late, and that results in a guy dying over here, and that results in a guy dying over here, and all of a sudden you lost a round and you lost it. Like there's so many, inner workings of a team like that. But I think most Counter-Strike players now have taught themselves to communicate in English. You play FPL, you play Faceit, you play all these international games that over time people just learn it. So I think it's viable now. I don't see a reason for people not to try out international teams if they want to. I'd say it's still a tiny advantage to have 5 players from the same country, not only in terms of communication, but also in terms of culture, right?
Yeah.
If you have a team with a Danish guy, a Swedish guy, a guy from Montenegro, a guy from China, and a guy from America, right? There's going to be a lot of different cultures within that team, a lot of different ways of doing stuff. How do you practice? How do you deal with conflicts? Are you aggressive? Are you passive? Do you shut down? Do you become vocal, etc., etc.? So in terms of having a team that is working, it's sometimes a bit of a risk having too many different cultures within a team. So it's definitely viable, but it's a very interesting conversation.
Do you think ZywOo was held back after Vitality moved international? There have been rounds where it's just so clear that there's a language barrier there. Communication wasn't there, and he doesn't realize he's being flanked, things like that. Do you think he was held back a little bit, like he was maybe not as comfortable as before?
I think so, a little bit, especially in the beginning when they brought in Magix and Dupuy, and they had to redo the entire system and switch to English. I think so. I remembered myself when I went from Danish Counter-Strike to Liquid, and I had to speak in English as well. It took me, say, 3 or 4 months, before I became fully comfortable in communicating in English. So it's natural that ZywOo may have been held back a little bit. Same could be said about Apex and Nesuda, now Spinks, but I don't think it's a problem anymore. I think ZywOo is going to do just fine. And the last 3 weeks after the player break, he's been the 2nd highest player in the world again. So I think we're getting to see the best of ZywOo.
Yeah. Well, another notable international team who has made recent moves, G2, and the world's new favorite player, HooXi. What are your thoughts on HooXi? The outlook of HooXi in G2? Do you think that G2 is going to give him maybe enough time to shine? Do you think G2 gave Alexi B enough time?
Yeah, I think G2 gave LXB enough time. He got more than half a year to figure it out. The problem with G2 was that we never really saw any significant improvements. So I think it was the right move to move on from LXB.
Mhm.
Again, we don't know the inner workings of the team, how much how good the relationship between the players were, etc. But for Hooksy, it's interesting. I think they're going to give him enough time. Like they are going to give him half a year. They're going to give him the major as well. The
Mhm.
problem for Hooksy is. As much as I like the guy, and I think he's a great spot in interviews, he's fun. He's really embracing the whole, G2 meme, and seems like a great fit, personality-wise into the team.
Mhm.
His individual level is so low that it's going to start raise questions already from day one. I feel like with Alexi B, we saw, good events, bad events, good events, bad events. And
Mhm.
after 4 or 5 months, we're like, okay, there's more bad events than there's good events. Maybe his individual level is not good enough. Whereas with Hooksy, it's only been a couple of weeks. I know that, but it's just been very, very bad from the get-go. If that continues, I'm afraid that he won't get as much time as he potentially need in order to get into that with him. So
Mhm.
it's a curious one for me. I think individually speaking, he's not good enough to be on a team like G2. G2 is a team that wants to win a major trophy. That's the whole goal. You got guys like Monacy, Nico, Honda. You have players that are supposed, JKS for that matter. You have players that are supposed to win trophies, and I don't think Hooksy as a player is good enough for that. As a caller, I think he definitely is. I think he adds a lot of structure from Danish calling, and what he
Mhm.
did in Copenhagen Flames, he was doing great. But yeah, I'm afraid it'll be a failed experiment if you ask me straight up. I don't think Hooks is good enough to make G2 the best team in the world. Not consistently. They can win a tournament occasionally, but they're never going to be a face on Avi, I think.
He's the kind of guy that he just impossible to hate. I think everybody's kind of we're
Yep.
we're all rooting for him to fail and win, succeed at the same time. So I think he's just a great fit for G2 because the whole team is a meme and the Hooksy is a meme. So maybe they fully
For sure.
embrace it. Maybe they pull off a miracle run, Cinderella run. We'd love to see it. But speaking of another IGL who is struggling, in the frag department, Bentet on Tyloo. I don't know if you've heard, they didn't even come out of China for
Yeah.
for this RMR. And they were ranked dead last out of the 4 teams.
Yeah.
It's just because I thought it was rock bottom when they lost to Renegades, and you covered that match. They had a 13-2 lead on Vertigo, but they just got,
Yep.
but they came all the way back, and then they lose it in overtime. I thought that was rock bottom. But this time, we don't even make it out of China. So just what is going on with Tyloo?
It's a good question. I think Benton as a player, I was always a big fan of Benton. I think he's a great player. I think individually speaking, he was very strong, even when he was playing in Europe for some of the European teams. A player that could make the difference on the server, especially in the first time he was in Tyloo before he came to Europe. I feel like I think I played against Tyloo a couple of times as well. Whenever you prepared for Tyloo, you prepared for Benton. Like he was the strongest guy, sort of. As for Tyloo as a team, if I might be completely honest with you, I think Tyloo is one of the teams out there in the world that has had the most wasted potential. You have so much individual skill, but when I see you play, it feels like you're playing Counter-Strike like you are 3-year-old in a sense. Like some of the decisions are horrendous. I don't understand why. Some of the basics of Counter-Strike that, at least in Denmark, is being taught when you're 12, 13, 14 years of age, seems like they just go missing in Asian Counter-Strike. You always suffered from that, and I feel like nowadays it's becoming even more so. Like Counter-Strike in Europe, it's becoming so high level, it's so thought out. You got to be so smart to be on a good team. You got to understand your grenades, your timings, etc., etc. And it feels like you're just lacking behind right now. And Tyloo being a great case of that. But yeah, as a general, I think Tyloo is a team that could have done much, much better and could have had many better results had they had a coach or a system or a couple of players who could actually teach the teammates how to play proper Counter-Strike. Because individually speaking, I wouldn't go on a name server with anyone from Tyloo. You guys are sharp as hell.
I mean, I'm watching a lot of these rounds. Like they get all these like crazy entries, right? They get the site, they have an advantageous post plan, and then they just blow it. It's not like they don't have the skills, because they wouldn't even be able to get that plant if they didn't have the skills. Tyloo at a certain point was ranked number 10 in the world. They were going toe to toe with Astralis, Na'Vi, Mouse Sports, and Renegades, and there's just so much weight and so much pressure that all the fans put on them because they're like they used to be so high up. Bentet is doesn't matter about his individual form right now. Like he is just the best player to ever come out of Asia, CSGO wise. He's played with Daps, Azure, and Exist. He has a lot of knowledge about maybe the right way that this game can be played. Do you think Tai Lu needs to maybe double down on the international strategies, that maybe bring like another international player? Because that's what they used to have. They used to have Bentet and Xcurate. They had two international players. And then their comms would just be a mixture of Chinese and English. And it worked, sort of.
When you have two different languages, on a team and you're mixing it up, it's going to be a mess no matter what. Like, there's going to be a cap to how good you can be, even though like you hit all your shots, even though you're maybe the best, individual players on the server. When you don't have the communication with you, there's a cap to how good you can be. I guess an unlimited cap on how many mistakes you can do. So if I'm Tai Lu, I don't know, about the scene, and I don't know about the players within the team right now, if they would be able to learn English, just basic English and something like that. But yeah, I guess, import talent. That's what NA did. We made jokes about NA Counter-Strike for many, many years, and they realized, okay, they make fun of us, let's start to import some of the European players. They brought me, they brought Hiko, they brought Simple. They, like, all these international players, all of a sudden went to NA, and slowly but surely they were told, how to play proper Counter-Strike. And I think that's maybe something you could benefit from as well. But then again, are Tai Lu willing to speak English only? And can you force the players to speak English only, etc., etc.? I think that would be the way to go, though, if you really want to make a dent in Counter-Strike.
And also Yakinder to Liquid, that's a whole situation. They're doing so well. And that's, that goes to show, bringing imports. So sure. I do want to open up to maybe like 3 to 5 minutes of Q&A, and then I'm going to let you go. Yeah, I just hope that Counter-Strike will come back to China one day when there's like some big international event that you can actually make it here,
I would love to. To. There's rumors that that the next media perhaps could be in China, right?
How far do you think Liquid will go this year?
I think Liquid will go far. I think Liquid is a team that can definitely make it back to top 5. I think they could potentially win a trophy, one of the smaller tournaments. I don't think they're ready to win a major just yet. They also have a bit of a weakness in Nitro as an in-game leader right now. But I think Liquid is a team that, if you're a Liquid fan, you can expect them to do well, especially with Yakinder. And I think that I wouldn't be surprised if they establish themselves as a top 5 team again, which would be good for NA Counter-Strike.
Yeah. What was your favorite highlight of your own career?
I think my favorite highlight was when I was playing in Team Liquid. We're playing in New York at a big tournament against Fnatic. Score is 14-14. Arenas filled out with 10,000 people, all rooting for NA Counter-Strike, rooting for Liquid, rooting for me. And I ended up winning a 1v3 clutch. And everyone just went crazy,
That is dirty, and Nitro is taken out of the fight.
How could it be? It's just a UMP, but he's going to be walking up. Hiko going down. Pimp gets one, and a follow. Electro! He's out! Pimp with the triple kill! Ladies and gentlemen, it is match point here for Team Liquid as they fight their way through an unreal comeback.
The entire arena just exploded, 10,000 people. And that was a confirmation where it's like, fuck, okay, it was worth it. I took my entire life from Denmark, dedicated my entire life to Counter-Strike, and this is why I did it. So that was one of those moments that I always cherish.
So right now, it doesn't matter, Na'Vi and FaZe, they're struggling, but they are still like on their own level. Do you think there will be another team on their level this year?
Initially, I'd say no. I think FaZe and Na'Vi are still going to be the 2 best teams in the world. But if any team could surprise and get up there, I'd say potentially Vitality. I really do believe Vitality with Spinks could be what unlocks that team to go up to a position where they can compete against them. I don't think Vitality is going to be the best team in the world. I don't think they're going to beat Na'Vi or FaZe, but I think that could be the 3rd team up there. Otherwise, maybe Cloud9, if they can rediscover some form. It's been very much up and down for them.
Yeah.
I was actually sure that Heroic would come out and play well. I think this signing of Yappy would have been a good signing, but they have been very disappointing so far. So,
well, thank you for that. Well, I'm going to ask everybody to say thank you, and then, have fun. Good luck, have fun on your football match.
Thank you so much.
And please thank Stefan for me. He's been
sure.
He's been absolutely great for me, and
awesome. If you want to do it another time, just let us know and we'll set that.
That would be amazing. Maybe next time Counter-Strike comes back to China, I'll go find some work there.
Sounds good.
Do some interviews or something. It would be amazing. But yeah. So we're all just saying thank you. Just again. Yeah.
Fantastic.
This is so great.
So much,
I'm gonna make a lot of videos out of this. Long ones, short ones. So when is your next big event?
I'm doing ESL Pro League on Danish TV, so with Danish commentary.
And then okay.
There's going to be some blast events coming up and stuff that hasn't been announced yet, but I'll be around.
Hopefully one day we'll, you come to China for some big event, and it would be amazing. All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Good luck on your football game, and we'll see you next time. We'll see you on TV.
Thanks so much. Have a good
All
one,
right.
boys.
All right. Bye now.